Right now, at this very moment, there is a machine the size of a small car drifting through absolute nothingness, 25 billion kilometers from the planet you're sitting on. No human has ever been anywhere near it. No repair crew can ever reach it. And the people whose job it is to keep it alive are making decisions that take 2 full days just to receive a response to. They are operating a dying spacecraft in real time, in the dark, across a distance so vast that the word far becomes almost offensive. And it is slowly running out of time. It started with a number. Not a dramatic number, not the kind of number that makes headlines or trends on social media. Just 4 watts. That is how much power Voyager 1 loses every single year. 4 watts. Roughly the energy it takes to power a small nightlight in your hallway. And for nearly 5 decades, that quiet, invisible drain has been accumulating, compounding, eating away at the margins of the most distant human-made object in the history of this civilization. Nobody panicked about it in 1977. Nobody panicked about it in 1990. But right now, in the middle of 2026, that slow bleed has brought NASA's engineers to a moment where every single decision carries the weight of irreversibility. One wrong call, and Voyager 1 goes silent forever. Voyager 1 is already the farthest human spacecraft from Earth, the first to reach interstellar space, and it is currently sitting approximately 25.3 billion kilometers away from the planet where it was built. Think about what that number actually means, not as a statistic, as a physical reality. If you tried to drive there in a car at highway speed, it would take you over 28 million years. The signal carrying these words to your screen travels at the speed of light. That same speed of light takes almost 24 hours just to reach Voyager 1 right now. And here's the part that should genuinely stop you for a moment. When the engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, send a command to that spacecraft, they have to wait nearly 2 full days to find out if it worked. 2 days, not 2 hours, not 2 minutes. 2 days of silence before you know if the most distant spacecraft humanity has ever built did what you asked it to do. According to Susie Dodd, Voyager's project manager at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the communication delay has reached a point where a simple "Good morning" message sent at 8 a.m. on a Monday would only receive a response back by Wednesday morning. That is not a science fiction scenario. That is the operational reality of managing Voyager 1 right now, today, in August 2026. And it is about to get even more extreme. Because in just a few months from now, that gap will cross a threshold no human mission has ever crossed before. Not Apollo, not the International Space Station, not any Mars rover. On November 18th, 2026, at precisely 2:16 a.m. Pacific Time, Voyager 1 will be exactly 25,168 kilometers from Earth, the distance that light itself travels in exactly 24 hours. 1 full light day. It will be the first human-made object in history to reach that distance, and the team trying to keep it functional will be doing so across a communication gap that makes every other deep space mission look like a walkie-talkie conversation. But here is where it gets complicated, because reaching that milestone assumes Voyager 1 survives long enough to get there. And right now, that survival is not guaranteed. After almost a half-century since launch, the spacecraft's power margins have grown razor thin, requiring the team to conserve energy by shutting off non-essential devices and systems. Since 2024, the dwindling power supply has forced the mission to turn off 2 science instruments on each of the Voyager spacecraft. Read that again. 2 instruments shut down in just the last 2 years alone. Not because they malfunctioned, not because they were broken. Because there simply is not enough electricity left to run them. The spacecraft that once carried 10 scientific instruments into the void is now limping forward on a fraction of its original capacity. And every instrument that goes dark takes with it a piece of knowledge that can never be recovered, because Voyager 1 is the only human machine that has ever been to where it is right now. On April 17th, 2026, engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory turned off Voyager 1's low-energy charged particles experiment, an instrument that had been measuring ions, electrons, and cosmic rays from both the solar system and the galaxy beyond. The instrument had been operating almost without interruption since Voyager 1 launched in 1977, nearly 49 consecutive years of science. 49 years. That instrument was switched on before most of the engineers now working the mission were born. It had survived the crossing of the heliosphere, the boundary where the sun's influence ends and true interstellar space begins. It had survived the communications blackout of 2023 that nearly ended the mission entirely. It had survived decades of cosmic radiation, temperature extremes, and the mechanical stress of deep space. And then, in April 2026, it was turned off. Not because it failed, because the spacecraft could no longer afford the electricity to run it. This is not a story about a machine falling apart. This is a story about a machine being slowly, deliberately, piece by piece, put to sleep. because the alternative is losing everything all at once. The power source driving Voyager 1 is a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, a device that converts the heat produced by decaying plutonium-238 into electricity. There are no solar panels this far from the sun. Out here, sunlight is so faint it would be useless, even if the panels existed. The only energy source is nuclear decay, and nuclear decay does not wait. It does not slow down because you need more power. It does not respond to engineering creativity or mission urgency. It simply continues at its own pace, releasing heat that diminishes at a predictable and unstoppable rate. Since the probes began flying nearly half a century ago, they have been losing an estimated 4 watts of power per year. And managing this slow but steady drain pushes engineers into a high-stakes balancing act. And this is where it becomes genuinely terrifying. Because turning off instruments to save power sounds reasonable, logical even. You sacrifice the less important systems to protect the more important ones. But Voyager 1 is not a laptop that will slow down gracefully if you close a few tabs. Turning off heaters in a spacecraft traveling through interstellar space, where temperatures drop to approximately minus 269 degrees Celsius, just 4 degrees above absolute zero, the coldest temperature physically possible in the universe, means gambling with the thermal integrity of every remaining system. Turning off instruments and heaters in the frigid temperatures of interstellar space risks chilling the probes beyond repair. It is a precise, brutal, unforgiving calculus. Save power here, risk freezing a fuel line there, and a frozen fuel line is not something you fix with a phone call to mission control. A frozen fuel line at 25 billion kilometers from Earth is a spacecraft that slowly stops responding and then falls silent forever. The engineers at JPL are not just managing a spacecraft. They are performing surgery across the solar system without gloves, without the ability to see the patient, and without the ability to reach them if something goes wrong. This is the world Kareem Badruddin works in every day. As Voyager's mission manager at JPL, he has been responsible for some of the most technically difficult and emotionally heavy decisions in the history of space exploration. When he spoke about shutting off the low-energy charged particles instrument, his words were measured, careful, the kind of language a person uses when they are trying not to show how much something costs them. While shutting down a science instrument is not anybody's preference, it is the best option available, Badruddin said. That sentence, stripped of its bureaucratic calm, means something very specific. We had no other choice. Every option was on the table. Every alternative was evaluated. And this, turning off a nearly 49-year-old instrument that has been faithfully reporting from the edge of the known universe, was the least terrible option remaining. But here is what most people are not seeing in this story. The shutdown of that instrument was not just a power management decision, it was a strategic maneuver. It was buying time. Because running parallel to the quiet tragedy of Voyager 1's instrument losses, a different story has been unfolding inside JPL, one that the engineering team has been calling, with a certain dark humor, the Big Bang. Nicknamed the Big Bang, the effort involves simultaneously turning off certain powered devices and substituting them with lower power alternatives while ensuring the spacecraft remains warm enough to operate. The name captures exactly what makes this maneuver so extraordinary and so dangerous. This is not a gradual adjustment. This is not a careful one-step-at-a-time power reduction, spread over months. This is a simultaneous, coordinated, all-at-once swap of multiple critical systems. Tape recorders, heaters, power routing components, all replaced in the same moment with lower power alternatives, while the engineers hold their collective breath and hope that the transition does not spike the temperature somewhere critical, does not cut power to something irreplaceable, does not trigger a cascade of failures that ends the mission in a single catastrophic moment. Rather than switching off one low-priority load at a time, engineers turn off several aging devices at once, tape recorders and heaters that had been drawing power for decades, and replace them in the same moment with lower power alternatives, all while keeping the spacecraft's electronics above the temperature at which they would fail for good. Think about what that means in practical terms. These are components that have not been touched in decades. Some of them have been running continuously since 1977. Nobody alive has hands-on experience with the actual hardware. The engineers working on this mission are reading manuals, studying telemetry, and making inferences about machinery that is operating in an environment no laboratory on Earth can fully replicate. And they have to get it right the first time. There is no second attempt. There's no rollback. If the Big Bang goes wrong on Voyager 1, it goes wrong permanently. And yet, there was reason for cautious optimism, because they tested the concept first. On Voyager 2, engineers spent months pondering the approach in late 2025 and early 2026, when the only antenna that was able to communicate with Voyager 2 was down for repair anyway. Even as the mission experts warmed to the strategy, they knew it was risky. We couldn't afford to be wrong, Badruddin said, so they designed a power test and a thermal test. They ran simulations, They stress-tested their assumptions. They built in every margin of safety that the deteriorating power budget of a half-century-old spacecraft would allow. And when Voyager 2 cleared both its power test and its thermal test during May and June 2026, they proceeded with the full Big Bang maneuver in July. The Big Bang itself occurred in July 2026, with the full process complete by mid-month. And it worked. On Voyager 2, the procedure freed up nearly 10 watts of annual power consumption, power that would now be redirected to keeping the remaining science instruments alive. Without the Big Bang activity, the mission would have had to turn off another instrument on Voyager 2 before the end of 2026. The savings should provide power to keep its 3 instruments operating for at least an extra year. An extra year. In deep space mission terms, an extra year is not a small thing. An extra year is potentially thousands of data points from a region of space that no other probe will reach for decades. An extra year is measurements of the interstellar medium, the thin, cold gas and magnetic fields that exist between star systems that cannot be replicated from Earth or from any other spacecraft currently in operation. An extra year of Voyager 2 is irreplaceable, but now the attention turns to Voyager 1, and this is where the story becomes genuinely fascinating and genuinely unsettling. Badruddin has said plainly that although the 2 spacecraft were built to the same design, the team has observed real differences between them after 49 years of separate flight. They are twins that no longer behave identically. They were launched from the same assembly floor, built to the same specifications, programmed with the same software architecture. But 49 years of cosmic radiation, of different trajectories, of different thermal histories, of different anomalies and repairs and workarounds have made them distinct. What worked on Voyager 2 is not guaranteed to work on Voyager 1. The engineers know this, and they are proceeding anyway because there is no other option. The engineers are now stepping through the same process on Voyager 1, expecting to wrap up in the coming weeks. Just recently, Badruddin said, "We did the power test, and it went extremely well." And then, with the careful optimism of someone who has learned not to celebrate too early, "I don't want to jinx it, but this Big Bang test has gone remarkably smoothly. Voyager 2, we're done, and it went exactly to plan. Voyager 1, so far, so good. So far, so good." Those 4 words carry the entire weight of 49 years of space exploration history. So far, so good. On a spacecraft that NASA once declared partially dead in 2023, that sent garbled, nonsensical data back to Earth for months before engineers figured out that a single corrupted chip in the flight data system was responsible for the chaos. So far, so good. On a machine that operates on computer memory 3 million times smaller than a modern smartphone. So far, so good on a probe that is now so far from Earth that if something goes wrong right now, today, the earliest anyone here would know about it is tomorrow morning. This is not chaos. This is strategy, but the line between the two has never been thinner. Despite 47 years in space, Voyager 1 still transmits data daily using just 23 watts of power, roughly the equivalent of a standard household light bulb, aided by NASA's deep space network of giant antenna dishes positioned around the globe. 23 watts. The device you use to charge your phone probably draws more power. And yet, that 23-watt whisper, crossing 25 billion kilometers of interstellar space, is still reaching us. Engineers still hear it. Scientists still extract real, meaningful data from it every single day. The fact that this is even possible is, objectively, one of the most remarkable engineering achievements in human history. And it receives almost no attention from the mainstream conversation about space exploration. What most people are not seeing is that Voyager 1 is not just a nostalgic artifact. It is an active science mission that is currently returning data from a place that no other instrument from any nation, from any era, has ever observed. The interstellar medium, the space between star systems, was essentially a theoretical concept until Voyager 1 crossed into it in 2012. The Voyager spacecraft have been the only probes able to take these measurements since Voyager 1 reached interstellar space in 2012 and Voyager 2 in 2018. Everything we know about what truly exists beyond the sun's influence, the plasma density, the magnetic field direction, the charged particle environment, comes from these 2 spacecraft. When Voyager 1's instruments go dark, that knowledge pipeline closes, and it will not reopen, because no follow-up interstellar mission is currently funded or designed to replace it. Voyager 1 currently sends back data using its 2 remaining functional instruments, which measure plasma waves and magnetic fields in uncharted territory. 2 instruments. Out of an original 10, 2 instruments measuring phenomena that have never been measured before, at a distance that has never been reached before, on hardware that is nearly half a century old, powered by the decay of a radioactive element that is running out. And engineers are now attempting a simultaneous multi-system swap on that hardware across a 2-day communication delay, hoping it works as well on Voyager 1 as it did on Voyager 2. The stakes are not metaphorical. If the Big Bang procedure fails on Voyager 1, the mission could lose one or both of its remaining science instruments far sooner than projected. The engineers say they hope to keep at least one instrument operating on each spacecraft into the 2030s. Into the 2030s, meaning at least another 9 to 10 years of data from interstellar space, data that could fundamentally reshape our understanding of how the sun's protective bubble, the heliosphere, interacts with the broader galaxy. But that hope depends on the Big Bang working. It depends on engineering decisions made across the solar system in a spacecraft that does not quite behave like its twin, holding together under conditions that were never designed to last this long. And there is yet another dimension to this story that deserves serious attention because it connects the survival of Voyager 1 to forces far closer to home than interstellar space. In October 2025, reports emerged that the Voyager probes were facing a 26% funding cut as NASA grappled with budget pressures and institutional restructuring. A 26% cut to a mission that is already operating on margins so thin that 4 watts per year is an existential crisis. A 26% cut to the only mission currently transmitting data from interstellar space. The engineering team at JPL is not just fighting physics and time and distance, they are also fighting for budget allocations in a world where flashier missions with better press coverage command more political attention. This is the hidden war behind the Voyager story, the one that does not appear in the press releases, the one that does not fit neatly into the narrative of triumphant exploration. The reality is that keeping Voyager 1 alive requires sustained financial commitment from an institution that is increasingly being asked to do more with less. And every dollar that does not go to the Voyager mission is a decision, conscious or unconscious, about whether the most distant human-made object in history is worth keeping alive. For the people who have dedicated careers to this mission, that question is not abstract. Years ago, the Voyager science and engineering teams jointly agreed on the order in which instruments would be switched off to conserve power while preserving the most scientifically valuable capabilities. Think about that meeting. Think about sitting in a room with colleagues, with scientists and engineers who have spent decades working on specific instruments and agreeing together on the sequence in which those instruments will die. Not fail, die. Because shutting them off is a choice, not a malfunction. These are people voting on the death order of their life's work for the sake of a mission that is larger than any single instrument. That requires a particular kind of professional grief and a particular kind of commitment that does not have a clean name. And through all of it, Voyager 1 keeps moving. Right now, as you process these words, it is traveling at approximately 61,500 kilometers per hour, about 17 kilometers every second, deeper into interstellar space. It has been moving continuously since September 5th, 1977. It has never stopped. There are no brakes in deep space, no friction to slow it down, no force acting against its momentum. It will continue moving long after its last instrument goes dark, long after the last signal reaches Earth, long after every engineer who ever worked on this mission has lived a full life and passed on. Once communications finally cease, the probe will continue silently drifting, passing near the star Gliese 445 in about 40,000 years. 40,000 years from now, something humanity built will pass through another star system. Not because anyone planned it, simply because physics does not stop when the mission does. But right now, in August 2026, it has not gone silent yet. Right now, the signal is still coming in. Right now, the engineers are still in the fight. If the Big Bang procedure works on Voyager 1 as planned, there is even a chance that the LECP instrument, the low-energy charged particles experiment that was shut down in April, could be switched back on. That possibility is extraordinary. An instrument that was turned off because the spacecraft could no longer afford to run it might, if the power savings from the Big Bang are sufficient, be brought back online. Data that stopped flowing in April 2026 might resume. The only human instrument measuring cosmic rays and charged particles from interstellar space might start reporting again. That is not a given. It is a slim possibility. But it is a possibility that would not exist at all without the courage of an engineering team willing to perform the most dangerous upgrade in the history of the mission on a spacecraft operating at the edge of the observable world. And then there is November. On November 18th, 2026, Voyager 1 will become the first human-made object to reach a distance of 1 light day from Earth, adding to what NASA describes as a long list of historic firsts for the mission. 1 light day, a distance so large that light itself, the fastest thing that exists, the universal speed limit of reality, takes a full 24 hours to cross it. When Voyager 1 reaches that point, every command sent from Earth will require 48 hours round trip to execute. 2 days just to confirm that the spacecraft did what you asked. The team will need to plan further ahead, anticipate more variables, and trust their own preparation more deeply than any mission in history has ever required. But what happens after November? What happens in the years beyond the one light day milestone as the power continues to drain, as the instruments one by one reach the end of their operational lives, as the signal grows fainter and the communication delays grow longer? Scheduled instrument shutdowns reflect the spacecraft's declining plutonium power supply, leaving its long-term science output uncertain. The engineers hope to keep at least one instrument running into the 2030s. They are trying. The Big Bang is their best attempt to buy the time they need. But uncertain is the operative word. Uncertain means nobody knows how this ends. Uncertain means there are scenarios where the last instrument goes dark in 2027 or 2028 instead of 2032. Uncertain means that every piece of data coming back from Voyager 1 right now might, in some future version of events, turn out to be among the last. And here's the thing that stays with you if you let it. Here's the thought that does not resolve cleanly or wrap up into a satisfying conclusion. Voyager 1 carries a golden record. Mounted on its exterior is a 12-inch gold-plated copper disc containing sounds and images selected to portray the diversity of life and culture on Earth. Greetings in 55 languages, music from dozens of cultures, natural sounds, scientific diagrams, photographs of human beings. It was placed there in 1977 with the explicit purpose of communicating with any intelligent life that might someday encounter the spacecraft. It is, in the most literal sense, a message in a bottle cast into an infinite ocean. And right now, today, that message is sailing through interstellar space on a craft that its creators are fighting, daily, desperately, creatively, to keep alive for just a few more years of science. Nobody sent Voyager 1 out there to die quietly. Nobody built it to go silent before it had to. The people managing this mission are not giving up. They are doing something genuinely extraordinary. They are extending the life of a 49-year-old spacecraft across a distance that breaks the intuition of any human brain that tries to truly comprehend it, using engineering solutions that have never been attempted before on hardware that no longer has a known precedent. The Big Bang is their gamble. The light day milestone is their marker. The 2030s are their goal. Whether Voyager 1 reaches them is a question that will be answered not in days, but in the slow, quiet accumulation of signals crossing 25 billion kilometers of empty space. Each one a confirmation that the most distant thing humanity has ever built is still out there, still moving, still talking. But the silence, when it finally comes, will be unlike any silence this planet has ever experienced. And nobody knows when it arrives. Nobody knows which signal will be the last one. Nobody knows if the Big Bang will hold, if the instruments will survive, if the power margins will prove sufficient. Nobody knows if Voyager 1 will reach its one light day anniversary still transmitting, or if it will cross that threshold in a silence that will only be understood later, when engineers check the data and realize the last message arrived days ago. What they do know is this. Right now, 25 billion kilometers away, something humanity built is still moving through the darkness between the stars. Still sending, still alive. And the people responsible for it are doing everything physics allows to keep it that way. The question is not whether Voyager 1 will eventually go silent. The question is what it tells us between now and then, and whether we are paying close enough attention to hear it.